So, thanks for having me. I was just listening to Donald Trump at that UN conference, and when he was talking about all the different things, net zero, immigration, everything else, it did feel like Donald Trump was like a hostage negotiator, trying to negotiate on our behalf because we have been held prisoner by our government. And that's what it feels like when J.D. Vance comes in and starts coming in talking about free speech and so on and border control and everything else. It's like they're basically negotiating with Starmer, negotiating with the EU to basically say, can you let your people free? And there was a chilling moment where Trump said, your countries are going to hell. What a statement in front of effectively the whole world. Your countries are going to hell. And you know what? He's right. We all feel it. We can all sense it. And that's why I actually think the press conference that Nigel and Zia gave on Monday was an absolute landmark situation. I don't think everybody fully realizes how potent that press conference was. Because there are some policies that are extremely important, and there are some policies which will literally save a country. The abolishment of indefinite leave to remain is a policy that will literally save the country, because you know what it's doing? It is reframing what it is to be a country. It is reframing what it is to be a nation. Because if you look at the political class, the media class, Starmer and so on, their idea of nationhood is to basically treat Britain like a sacrificial lamb, open up to the rest of the world, to be sacrificed on the world stage. Britain should effectively give away the Chagos Islands because, that's the good thing to do. Britain should effectively pursue net zero policy because we produce less than 1% of carbon emissions. We should open our borders and take our fair share. It is our duty to the world. That is how the political class see the situation. And what Nigel and Zia have done is they have completely reframed the situation, and they triggered a hell of a lot of people. You can see the convulsions in the media class because the very notion of what they see as a country is being undermined. Their very existence, their vision for the country is being undermined. I just wanted to read this tweet. Have you heard of Narendra Kaur? Have any of you heard? Fascinating character. She says this. I read this great tweet. This idea that immigrants must earn their place by serving Brits is insulting. We're not your underclass, not your carers on demand. We are not disposable labour to fill the jobs you sneer at and then be told to go home once you're done with us. We aren't your frigging servants, and we're not here to prove our loyalty. We're here to live, same as you. And if that rattles people, tough. We are here equally. We contribute and we ain't going anywhere, is what Narendra Kaur says. She thinks she's got the moral high ground. She thinks she's got the self-righteousness, but she's misunderstood a fundamental thing. A nation exists for its British citizens. That is the purpose of a country, to exist for its citizens. And if anyone wants to join on board in that, that's fine. But that has to be in the national interest. That is the fundamental principle. Everybody has forgotten it. I mean, by everybody, I mean the media class, the political class, the judiciary, Labour, the left, all of them have forgotten this fundamental concept. A nation exists for its citizens. And the strength of a nation and the prosperity of a nation depends on how well it serves its citizens. That is the fundamental premise we have forgotten. If you look at the United Arab Emirates, they actually are following a model similar to what Reform is proposing. But you know how much their immigration percentage is in the UAE? 88%. So the point I'm making is, Reform isn't anti-immigration, it isn't for immigration, it's just pro-British citizenship, so that we can choose the number coming in the national interest. That's what it is, plain and simple. Now, nobody voted for the Boris wave. Boris was on the media round today, defending the Boris wave. And I would say he wants a legacy. He wants a Churchillian legacy. That's what Boris wants. He wants to be remembered as the modern day Churchill. But he will be remembered as perhaps the leader that inflicted the biggest economic and cultural wound on this country ever. Nobody voted for the Boris wave, and I don't want a government going forward that's going to do damage limitation going forward. I want a government that can undo the damage of the Boris wave, and that's why the abolishment of indefinite leave to remain is so, so important. Now, people will say, what about the care workers and care homes? The youth have made it very clear. If we have emergency sectors, we'll have special visas. What about if you've been on indefinite leave to remain for 20, 30 years? Well, you have the option of becoming a British citizen. That's what my parents did, right? You have the option of embracing this country and being loyal to this country and becoming a British citizen. And if you don't want to do that, then I'm sorry, you will not be entitled to the benefits, be it state pension, welfare, whatever it is, because the nation exists for the British citizens. That shouldn't be controversial. Everybody understood this a few decades ago. Currently, our economic situation, £150 billion we borrowed, I think last year. We have spent £110 billion on interest servicing the debt. We are borrowing money to pay for the interest for the debt that we have. This is a Ponzi scheme, right? This is a Ponzi scheme. Inflation now is set to be the highest in the G7 in this country. The tax and spend doom loop is now entrenched, thanks to Rachel Reeves. She's transformed a fictitious 22 billion black hole into a factual 50 billion black hole plus. That's what she's managed to do. We are in a situation where every month we are spending £1 billion on universal credit on foreign nationals. None of this can continue. If British citizenship is to mean anything, it's that in times of crisis, the British citizen should come first. There should be nothing controversial about this. There's nothing xenophobic, racist, far right about this at all. This is just basic common sense. And do you know who else understands this? Do you know the Danish Prime Minister? She's of the left, and she has introduced some of the most harshest, strongest border control you can imagine. She's got asylum acceptance down to pretty much zero, slashed immigration. And when someone asked her, why is it you've introduced these far-right extreme policies about border control? She said very simply, I care about the working class whose wages are being undermined. I care about the welfare system that is meant for the people of this country. And if we have these open borders, it simply won't work. That is a sensible perspective from the left. She's from the left because she understands a country is for its British citizens. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because we all get cast as the bad guys. We all get classed as the bad guys in reform, and this will grow and grow and grow. And as you start campaigning, you'll get this more and more from the media, and they'll use us as scapegoats. But the reality is this: the left always use this kind of narrative of we are compassionate. We are here to help the minority, to help the ones who are oppressed. I think some of them say it out of a naive idealism. But I think many of them say it out of a sense of self-righteousness, a sense of arrogance, and I think essentially it's basically emotion. It's a narrative hijacked by their ego, and it's basically emotion. And you might think, Mayuran, how can you say that? What's your evidence for that? My evidence for that is everything the left touches fails, right? That's my evidence. Everything the left does is inherently contradictory. I want growth. Let's raise taxes and get the 1% out of the country who pay 30% of income tax. How are you going to get growth? Yeah, I want cheaper energy bills, so endless subsidies for renewables, which then find their way onto our energy bills. And then taxing the North Sea out of existence and cancelling licenses. But we want to get cheap energies, but we have to import it because we don't make anything domestically. How is that going to get cheap energy? We talk about the workers' rights bill. I want to protect the workers. But combined with national insurance rises and a workers' rights bill with extra regulation, there's going to be no jobs. I speak to my patients who just come out of university. They can't even get minimum wage retail jobs, and they've got degrees. That is the situation. What about trans rights? That's another thing. We want to protect trans people. But then why are you siding with Islamists? Right? Hezbollah, the Green Party, even Labour. The Islamists see gay rights and trans rights as an abomination. You got Shabana Mahmood saying we have to maybe disapply some of the ECHR. And you got Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, saying the ECHR is divine revelation. Right? Everything that happens on the left is inherently contradictory because it's not based on coherent principles, it's not sincere, it's shallow thinking, short-term thinking. That's why Keir Starmer has to effectively resuscitate his government every few weeks. You know, you've seen it, 6 pillars, 5 milestones, this is phase 1, this is phase 2. Because, you know, what is he trying to do? He's trying to catch breath because he knows he's sinking and he knows that the last few weeks have been a disaster. He's trying to survive every headline as it comes. And this is the thing, he's hardwired to fail. This is short-term thinking, shallow philosophy. These are not the good guys, right? Whenever you get on it, when you're knocking the door and people say, reform is this, that. Understand, you must be very clear about our philosophy and where we're coming from. These are not the good guys here. They do not think about the long-term prospects of this country. Just take the boats coming over. When the boats come over, there are 2 ways of looking at the people coming over from across the channel. Irregular migrants and asylum seekers on one side, or illegal migrants, right? 2. And it's not just words. These words have completely different trajectories which lead to completely different outcomes. If you see the people coming across the channel as irregular migrants, asylum seekers, then you say they're fleeing persecution, they're in imminent danger. How do you know that? The Refugee Convention tells us that they're asylum seekers. These are international treaties. This is international law. And so they must be asylum seekers. And it's like, okay, fine. So what are you going to do? We're going to process the asylum backlog as fast as possible. Whenever Yvette Cooper has said that, it gives me the shudders. Because all that means is an amnesty. Get them in as quickly as possible. People coming from Afghanistan, Syria and so on get effectively over 90% approval. So in effect, they come on the boats, get asylum, the backlog gets cleared, it gets approved, and then eventually they go into welfare, into social housing. And then it's a conveyor belt, so more come and more come and more come. This is the root of the so-called compassionate asylum seekers, irregular migrants. But we all know what the truth is. If you have left a safe country multiple times and paid thousands of pounds to someone to traffic you over into the British Isles, and then you're effectively an economic migrant. You have broken into the country illegally. If you are illegal, you need to be detained and then deported. There's nothing controversial here. There's nothing extreme here. This is rational. This is common sense. What you have on the other side is false compassion doomed to failure. That is what the left is. And then people say, but are you going to deport people back to Afghanistan? Well, Germany does. And we just found out recently, a lot of the people who have come here from Afghanistan are actually going back on holiday, right? So we cannot take on the world's problems, and we must put the British citizen first. But again, like I said to you, we will get the accusation, especially in the Lib Dem situation. Ed Davey, my gosh, Ed Davey. Does anyone really know what the Liberal Democrats stand for? Can you really? I don't think, I've listened to, well, let's say tons of speeches. I just don't know what they stand for. It's Disneyland politics is what it is. And I look at Ed Davis, the Peter Pan of the political world, just dancing and prancing around. You know, it's feel-good, heartwarming politics where you don't want to get your nails dirty into the real nitty-gritty stuff that everyone actually cares about. And so it's delusional. But I thought what was quite dangerous was Ed Davey when he kind of pushed a link between mass shootings in schools in America and trying to sort of pin that towards Nigel Farage as a possibility in Britain. This is shady, dark politics. Let me tell you, the Lib Dems are not the good guys. I campaigned here in Epsom and Ewell, and you can all vouch for me. You guys campaigned harder than I did, right? On the doorstep, the Lib Dems, they are not the good guys. And what Ed Davey and those on the left need to realise, when they say that, you're stoking division, they need to realise that if Nigel Farage had not come out of retirement and if reform was not doing so well, I reckon by now we would already have major civil unrest because people would have given up on the democratic process. All the hopes of the democratic pathway rest with reform. And so this is on our shoulders, all of us here, and this is why we do what we do. We are the last hope. And I believe when Nigel says by 2027 there'll be a general election, I do think that is a very, very realistic proposition. Imagine the boats are going to keep coming. The hotels are going to be opened. And then they'll close. They'll be like, yay, but they'll go into the HMOs. And then the asylum applications will get processed. They'll go into social housing. They're going to build 1.5 million homes. No, they won't. But any of those that they do build will go to those coming across. Can you imagine the sense of injustice that's going to build? You've got a budget coming up in November, I believe, as late as possible, Rachel Reeves has put it down, because she knows it's a doomsday budget. She's going to probably break her manifesto promises. The gilt markets are going to go crazy. Eventually, the Chancellor's going to go, Rachel Reeves is going to go. Eventually, then Keir Starmer will follow. And who's waiting in the wings? Andy Burnham, apparently, right? If he even gets into Parliament somehow, but there's no safe seat for the Labour Party, let's say he does, he's talking about taking on the bond markets. Trump couldn't even take on the bond markets. Who the hell is Andy Burnham to take on the bond markets, right? It's delusional clown world stuff. But there's going to come a point when the polls start tanking, when the economy faces an apocalyptic situation, that people in the Labour Party are going to start to realise we are facing electoral oblivion. And they're going to probably call a general election early. And that's why I do believe Nigel when he says 2027. I think that is definitely a realistic proposition. But what we have to realise here is we have to exploit that as much as possible and start now. We have to learn, I say, from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a political evangelist, right? He was a political evangelist. And we all need to become political evangelists. Talk to the person at your dinner table. Talk to your family members. Convince them of these arguments. Try and know your stuff as much as possible. Malcolm always messages me and he says, will you be a candidate? And I always say to him, yeah, go on, fine. I don't even know where we are. I put myself, but why do I put myself forward? Because I do believe this is the last chance we have to save this country. And I will do whatever it takes in any situation to put myself forward in any way I can help. If that means standing here, standing there, even if as a paper candidate, whatever it is, I'll put myself forward. Right? I've got a friend, he knows everything. He knows the economy inside out. He follows politics like you wouldn't believe. He reads the papers. He's got all the stats and all the figures. And he often phones me up and talks to me and has a little rant. And I said to him the other day, I said, what are you doing for the country? You've got all this knowledge. What are you doing for the country? Are you on social media? No. Have you joined Reform? No. What the hell are you doing then? And he was like, silence. My point is, if you hand out one leaflet and talk to one person and go around with purpose trying to convince people, you are doing more than this person, my friend. Despite all his knowledge, he's an economic master's, right? Despite all his knowledge and all his understanding of politics, if you just hand out one leaflet, you are doing something more tangible to save this country than even my friend. We have very limited time. This is the last chance to save this country. And I think we will all look back and ask ourselves, what did we do during this period between now and the next general election? Did we do enough to save the country? We'll be asking ourselves that question. I'm asking myself that question right now. I don't want to have any regrets. That's why I say yes to everything. I'm very lucky. Because of Epsom and Ewell and me standing here and my campaigning here, I've had platforms on Talk TV, Sky News Australia and other areas as well. I've been very, very fortunate. It was this constituency that opened all the doors to my whole, let's say, political pathway. And so I'm very, very grateful to be, and that's why I was really grateful that Malcolm asked me to come and speak to you all, because I've got so much gratitude for this constituency and those who campaigned with me especially. And I think going forward, we have to realise the responsibility. We have a purpose. It is our duty to serve this country. It is our duty to act for reform. And I say it's a sin if we don't. I use that word carefully. It's a sin if we have talents and we have expertise and we have time and we don't use it. We must use it because we have very limited time. We must save this country. Thank you very much.